Yay.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
It was a slight gavel. Let's come to order at 7 p.m. for the board meeting. Can you take the roll, please?
Mr. Durkin?
Here.
Ms. Gasko? Here. Ms. Ruska? Here. Jacobs?
Here.
Ms. Towner?
Here.
Mr. Benhorst?
Here.
And Ms. Salas?
Here. Pledge of Allegiance, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I took the roll call out of order, so I apologize, Mary Ann. Set you a little bit backwards there. We do have recognitions.
Yes.
Tom, would you mind reading those?
Yes. Whereas Lily Adelsick and Michael Sisuski have served as student advisors to the Board of Education of the Riverside Brookfield Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, during the 2020-2021 school year. And whereas they gave conscientiously and generously of their time and energies during that time. Whereas they served with dedication and great distinction and gave outstanding service to the faculty, staff, administration, students, and community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Board of Education of Riverside Brookfield Township High School District Number 208, Cook County, Illinois, that this expression of esteem and appreciation of Lily Adelsick and Michael Sisuski and the great benefits which have accrued to the school by reason of their unselfish service be incorporated in the minutes of this meeting of said board. And the Board of Education, in witness whereof, do hereunto affix our signatures and seal at Riverside, Illinois, this 25th day of May 2021.
We need a second.
Get a second.
Second by Bill Durkin, Miriam.
Does anyone else want to make some comments regarding Lily and Michael? Before we hand the words?
Say thank you
Yeah.
for all your service and commitment, on this pilot program. And thanks to Tom for putting it all together. But take pride in your accomplishments, not only what you've represented here, but also what you've done day to day, in class, extracurriculars. On behalf of the board, we thank you very much. It's a big time commitment, but you guys brought a lot to the table. We really appreciate it. Meant a lot.
It's not always easy to be the first, right? And so thank you for blazing the trail, and I have really appreciated your honesty and your candor during our discussions in order to give the student perspective. That's why you're here, and I think it helped. This, again, was a really rough year for everyone, so probably this year more than ever, your perspective was hugely important to us in some of the decisions that we made. And I also hope that you learned a little something about governance, right, and what it takes to be a part of a board, and hopefully you will continue to be giving of yourselves to public service, maybe not in the board capacity, but in other capacities. So thank you very much.
And I'll literally just add this. The moment you step out into a leadership position, it never stops. So I would really greatly thank you very much for, as Bill said, even if it was a good idea, it wouldn't have meant anything if you hadn't stepped up. And we've just added, words to the mission statement like civic involvement and so forth, and we know there's so much work. I do encourage you to take the idea of ambassadorship to your colleagues, to your parents and grandparents. Age is not an issue at all. There's a lot of work out there to be done, and I really take great inspiration by people of your age that actually step in at that point. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael, Lily. We appreciate it.
Did a good job.
Yes.
inaugural, this is your last meeting, so we're going to expect for you to comment on every agenda item tonight. And read some no, I'm just kidding. Thank you for being the inaugural student advisors to the board, and especially during a tough senior year, which both of you showed a lot of resilience in, so thank you.
So,
Yep.
Yes.
Is Mr. Prok still here to do, wait.
Oh, yes, someone get a,
Yes, I will.
thank you.
If I could.
Lily, Michael, why don't you come around with Mr. Jacobs and we'll take a picture in the front.
Good idea.
And Ramona, let's go to the other side because we got
Dr. Freitas, do you want to be in the picture too?
Dr. Fred.
Stand, like over.
And
Yeah.
face the two cameras in the front and we'll take it from that side.
Perfect.
We're not.
All right, I'm gonna take a couple, so.
Sure.
Sure.
Yes, take your mask off.
I'm vaccinated, so. Okay, I got you.
Thank you, guys.
We don't have a student association report tonight.
Correct.
Okay. We do have
Did
a,
we-
oh, I'm sorry.
Vote on that? Was this an all again?
Yes, we should vote for the record. I'm sorry.
We did finish.
Okay, thank you.
Good discussion.
Thank
I
you.
think we need to close it up, right?
Okay, all in favor of the resolution supporting both Michael and Lily's term? Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then, thank you very much. That was a good, thank you, Laura. I got carried away with the round of applause, and then I had moved on, right? Visitor statements. I do need to read the introductory paragraph. We do have one written submitted visitor statement. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages the participation of its citizens in the business of the school district. There are 2 points in the meeting where visitor statements are scheduled. Citizens are welcome to raise questions or make comments at either one. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and cannot be combined. Please note the Board of Education will not answer questions or engage in dialogue during visitor comments. If a person would like additional time to address the board, such a request should be submitted in writing 48 hours before the meeting to the superintendent. So today we did get an emailed request to read this email into the record. It's a follow-up from some of the public comment we heard at last meeting and the letters which were read into the record at the last meeting. This is from Lindsay Morrison, Indivisible West Suburban Action. RBHS Board of Education, District, and Administration. Attached find a list of over 150 people who have signed the letter Indivisible West Suburban Action League submitted to you on May 4th, 2021. Signatories are students, alumni, parents, and residents who learned about the letter through personal networks and private groups without public promotion. So I will include the email and the attached PDF in the meeting minutes. Thank you.
No other visitor comments?
I do not see any other visitor comment.
Dr. Freitas, I think you have a follow-up on that. You met with the Indivisible group. That's part of your principal report, correct?
Yes, part of my
Okay.
principal's report, yep.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, discussion information items. A, COVID-19 transition.
From the superintendent's perspective, state and local update, the Illinois Board of Education, Illinois State Board of Education passed a resolution on May 19th requiring schools to return to full-time in-person learning this fall. The only exception is for students who cannot be vaccinated and, key word is and, are under a state quarantine order. Based on the meetings I had this week with our superintendents associations, both at the high school and West Cook, additional guidance is slated to come out on June 11th, which is the proposed date for the state to head into phase 5. So the Superintendents Association is trying to see if we can get a draft of that guidance a little sooner, since most of the high schools start second, third week of August, just to give us enough time to prepare. But we're thinking it will entail information on whether or not the 3-foot the 3-foot social distancing will still be required, whether or not masks will still be required. Some updates on vaccinations for both staff and students, and the remote option. The key word in there, cannot be vaccinated and under our state quarantine order. In the original literature that went out from the State Board of Education, there was some language about students who have high-risk medical conditions can participate through a school's homebound or hospitalization program, which we have. For the new board members, should a student be dealing with a serious illness or need to be hospitalized for whatever reason, we have a homebound program where a tutor goes and provides supplemental work from the classes, and probably something very similar to what you have at Oak Park. So we're looking to get a little clearer guidance on the whole remote option. We've been preparing students and staff, and Dr. Freitas' communications and the communication letter I sent home at the end of April that we're preparing to come back for a traditional school year next year. So really all I'm looking for is a little more clarification on the guidance and the social distancing, any kind of updates on vaccinations, and then whether or not the remote option has to be offered. We also are still continuing to talk with West 40. They are still trying to put together a remote option, so if we do have a student who does have some serious issues and cannot attend school in person for first semester, they can attend a remote option through West 40. So I did fill out a survey this week to make sure they knew we were interested. And so I'll provide another update at June and at the July board meetings. The school matrix data is attached to my COVID-19 report. As you can see, 4 of the 5 variables are in minimal risk, minimal transmission, and 1 is in moderate. So this will be the last time I'll report out on school matrix data. And that will be, if there's still some type of matrix we have to use for next year, then I'll start that back up when the school year starts. But I'm I do assume that I think we can put the school matrix data away for now. Vaccinations, excited to announce that last Thursday, RB hosted 12 for ages 12 and older, a vaccination clinic in our field house. And the district will continue to advertise locations and opportunities for students so they can receive a vaccine throughout the summer. We had about 250 students receive the vaccine on Thursday. We also, any parents that came in with their students that wanted to get the vaccination, we also allowed them to as well. So, and I think the key note here is in the towards the end here of fourth quarter, as we were dealing with the 3-foot social distancing in classrooms, under the revised guidelines from the state, some parents were concerned about having their kids having to miss school or miss their athletic or activity events because of quarantining. And so one thing that has come out from the CDC is that individuals who are vaccinated do not need to quarantine, and that does apply to schools as well. So I would encourage families to really consider that's important to get your students vaccinated this summer. If you don't want to have them to have to quarantine next year, although the guidance is not clear what quarantine will look like, one way to avoid that is by having your student get vaccinated. And then the last part, which I already touched on, is we're continuing to prepare. I sent a PowerPoint to the board, and we're working on a document that will kind of summarize what school will look like starting in August, and some of the changes we've made to the lunch schedule, and what we're going to do to try to address students coming back to get an assessment of where they're at with their learning, and what needs to be made up from this past school year, or where we feel students may need some additional assistance. We're also doing some things with the social emotional side. So we'll continue to report out to the board on that throughout the summer.
On the vaccinations, is there a date for the follow-up vaccination? Was that set?
That was set, yes, in the appointments.
Okay, so
I
everyone
don't have that in my report.
No,
I'm
but
sorry.
everyone who took one vaccination has an appointment for
Correct.
a follow-up. Okay.
Dr. Freitas, you want to provide the high school side?
Yes, I'm ready. Good evening, board members. First of all, just, want to say thank you to everybody. Remember when we began that we always said we didn't have a playbook, right, for how to do school in a pandemic. Well, guess what, guys? We wrote it together. From the board, you guys always advocated for students coming back and entrusted our superintendent and building admin to put a good plan forward. And you challenged us time and time and again, and that was good because I know you guys wanted the kids learning and back in school. So I want to thank, a big thank you to our Board of Education, a big thank you to our superintendent, who's a visionary, who always led with data and systematically opened up the building. I want to thank our assistant superintendent who helped supported our teachers in accommodations. I want to thank my building administrators, Ms. Kylie Lindquist, assistant principal of curriculum and instruction, for co-leading our efforts in creating our blueprint for the next school year. Dave Mann, assistant principal of student affairs, for leading in contact tracing, and the deans as well. I want to thank Brendan Curtin, my assistant principal for athletics, for managing 4 athletic seasons, right? First, in school history and state history. I want to thank Ms. Beth Augustine, assistant principal of student services, for monitoring and tracking failure rates and getting the students what they need. I want to thank my director of special education, Mr. Kevin Baldis, for always meeting the needs of our special education students. Big shout out to our teachers for making learning gains and teaching our students how to leverage digital tools for learning. I want to thank maintenance, security, the cafeteria staff, their administrative assistants. This was really a team effort. And if we look at all the artifacts that we created together, we wrote the playbook on how to do school, during a pandemic. So I want to thank everybody. So to address the failure rate, we consistently and frequently did the following during fourth quarter. Made phone calls and emails, conducted home visits. I did some myself as well. We facilitated parents' conferences, practiced academic equity. Our teachers were flexible with assignments. We monitored our seniors' progress towards graduation. We continued our small teams meetings that monitor our students that are in a tough situation, and we created a robust summer school programming. I myself have begun inviting, and actually was at the Hauser, one of our junior high feeder schools, in one of their virtual meetings, encouraging the 8th graders to come take advantage of our summer school offerings. For athletics and activities, the summer season is underway via a modified IHSA calendar. There will be a complete state series for almost all sports except wrestling. And I'm a little down because I'm a wrestler, but I'm happy for all the sports that will be having a state series. School culture and operations are in-person attendance for fourth quarter. For the month of May, we averaged between 450 and 460 students of in-person learners daily. We continue with our grab and go lunches as students left the building. All of our teachers were trained on executive functioning skills and co-teaching. As the superintendent said earlier, we hosted a vaccination event here at school. Here we go, guys, graduation. You excited? You excited? We're coming. So, guys, graduation will be held outdoors at the Kennelly Athletic Complex, aka the stadium, this Friday, May 28th from 6 to 7:30. Students will be issued 3 tickets. I know you guys were asking for one more. Okay, we got you guys one more, all right? We got you guys one more ticket. So, guys, let's cross our fingers. Okay, the weather's looking a little cold, a little rainy, but we're going to have it done Friday. If not, the next day, Saturday, is the backup plan. And, of course, this Thursday will be our prom from 6 to 10:30 at the Hyatt Lodge in Oak Brook. This event is only for seniors, for only RB students. And Dr. Skinkis, that concludes my COVID-19 update.
So the Friday at 8 o'clock is the virtual graduation for students that do not feel comfortable attending, correct?
Correct.
And parents, it's just like a snow day. There's no right answer here, so I'm going to prepare you now if you're watching the board meeting. Unless it's scheduled to rain at 6 o'clock, I will make a call by like 3:30, but we are most likely going to try to do the graduation ceremony on Friday, so please dress accordingly for the ceremony. Any seniors that are watching as well. And Lily and Michael, I'm sure you'll help pass that word out. Being Memorial Day weekend, we have an emergency day planned on Saturday, but we will lose a large number of our staff and other employees that help pull off this production. So the goal is to pull this off on Friday unless it's really inclement weather.
So it's not May 8th, it's May 20th.
May 28th, yes, I think that's a typo, correct.
So I was a little confused. So the virtual, because we will have been there for the literal, that was the question. Are we then the board members going to stay then for the virtual, or?
No, the virtual is like what we did last year, where they just show the student's name, and there's a voiceover that reads each kid's names, and it will be copies of the speeches from the principal, superintendent, and the students.
Okay,
So it's very similar to what we did last year, like after the drive-through.
after the drive-through, okay.
And just that, we will be streaming the Friday graduation. The
Okay.
virtual graduation is kind of, like a bonus, right? Like a second graduation, but we will
Okay.
be streaming the actual ceremony.
Okay.
Any questions on the COVID part of the report before we move on? I'd like to take since we're in discussion items, I'd like to jump around a little bit, and it relates to the COVID transition. Was this item I brought up at the last meeting about a creation of a special board committee related to the re-engagement and rebuilding and returning the students to school in the fall. So my preference would be to get people's feedback if we're interested in doing this on 1 or 2 days over the summer, to really let the administration share those plans that Dr. Skinkis referenced in that PowerPoint we saw in our Friday packet. Dr. Freitas had a number of points about COVID that we've talked about, whether it's learning loss or social emotional learning support, and some of the programs that are being put in place for our students. So I think having a special committee would allow us to have a deeper dive and really get into some of those details and hear what the administration has been working on, because they've been putting a lot of time and effort into making this transition as robust and helpful for all of our students as possible. So with the board's support, I'd like to bring that as a motion at the next meeting to actually form this special committee. Any?
That's item E, right?
Yes.
Okay.
How will it will be a public meeting each time?
Since it's
Yes.
it's a
It'd be
committee of the
special
board.
committee of the whole, special committee of the board. So it's a public meeting. We could do it as a hybrid. We could do it, filmed, or we could do it all on Zoom, which would allow different people to participate. We could do it during the day, which might be helpful. If we did it, 8 to 10 o'clock on a Friday, might allow some different access.
Board members, are we required to be
No.
here?
No.
No, so
No.
we had one about 4 years ago, before you came on the board, about Ramona may remember, it was right when you first were elected. So there were 2 board members that were part of it, and if any other board members want to attend, and you attend as guest, you are not part of that committee. So there were 3 board members, which then you made it, mandated it to be open meeting. So I think it was probably maybe before you came on, because it was John, myself, Dr. Skinkis, it was a
Well,
curriculum.
there actually would be 2 different ways to do it. You could do a board committee, would be as you're describing, with
And that's
a
what you're
majority
saying,
of
it's a
the
board committee, and it's open to the public.
Right, but a committee of the whole would be open to the full board.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
so if it's a committee of the whole, then it's the whole, and then we got to publish it 24
Yeah.
hours
Yes.
ahead. Yeah.
But we were talking, Ms. Dalis and I talked when preparing the agenda. I said if we'd like to, because the our admin team, with summer school and then the school starting in August, a lot of our assistant principals and stuff have vacation days they have to use. And so it may work better trying to do this as a committee of the whole via Zoom, open to the public, and it could be a public recorded meeting, but then it's an opportunity where they can come during work hours and contribute, and really give them an opportunity to report out on, have Mr. Manning report on, and this is what we're doing for safety procedures, this is what we're doing for the lunches, et cetera. Ms. Lindquist can dive into the rebound or the, making up for the learning. And so we just thought it would be probably more suitable for a lot of, I think Zoom is replacing a lot of meetings in the work setting. And so this might be an opportunity to make it easier for the board to accommodate their schedules as well this summer.
So then, if we're going to do a committee of a whole, then we would have to make sure we get a quorum, though, right? About 4.
So you need 4, correct.
At least 4 members attend.
So we'd have to find a date that worked for the majority of the board, certainly, yeah.
Okay. Were you thinking to have outside members part of that committee, or is this strictly a board committee of the whole?
I would envision this as strictly a board committee of the
Okay.
whole, and certainly there'd be a chance for public comment,
Right.
like any other meeting.
Right.
But it's really, the way I'm thinking about it is a chance for the administration to showcase some of the work they've been doing in a level of detail we just don't get to in a regular board meeting, and focused very much on that return to school in the fall and what it looks like.
Okay. Well, then I suppose if you're moving in that direction too, you could be, you might want to think about, you could designate another person to kind of chair it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they would kind of report up to you, that way that way you're not chairing two meetings?
Yes.
That way, yeah. You know, they would work kind of with you, and you, as you devise that plan for the vote for the next meeting.
No, and I would suggest that this is not a regularly occurring meeting. I think,
Right.
in my opinion, it would be a one meeting, and then if there was a need for a follow-up, if there were some real precise follow-up questions, a second one could get scheduled, but I'm not suggesting it, meets weekly or monthly or anything along those lines.
So then another thing, when you do something like that, typically, again, you would set kind of like a sunset, like a purpose of it. Kind of like, this is something that we'll investigate maybe over the summer. Or, like have an endpoint in mind. And then if you need to extend it, then that would be another motion. But that way it does have a life.
Sure.
And you have a certain target that you're aiming at. And then if you get to when you get to the end of that target, you might discover that there's more that you need, and you need to continue it or keep it going, or you're done, you're satisfied.
Sure. So I would suggest we can bring a motion, a resolution motion to the board at the next meeting, and would include some of those details. We can vote on it and maybe tweak it if we need to during that process, and then we could, the goal would be to have this meeting in June at some point.
Okay, yeah, and I'm
Okay.
just, giving you some ideas so that when you bring it for, next meeting, it's ready to roll.
Sure. No, thank you. Any other comments or feedback on that particular matter?
I just think it's a great idea, certainly has my support, and I know we all hope that it's gonna be nothing like last summer, but we're not out of this thing yet. It's going in the right direction, but I think anything we can do to continue discussing how we can, catch up, but also, I just think it's a good idea. It's an opportunity to communicate to members of the community and members of the building. So I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so we'll have some more details on the next agenda, and we can talk through those at that point and hopefully get moving forward. So
Having seen the plans that have been put in the process so far, there's a lot to talk about. So for us to be informed in that way, I think is a good opportunity for us to also invite the public to view it, especially if it's on Zoom. It's something that may be easily enough attended for those curious to know the expectations going into next year. So I am in support as well.
Okay. Very good. Then, again, we're still on discussion items, so we'll get to the details at the next meeting, but I appreciate everyone's support. Moving back through the agenda, student advisors plan for next year. A quick update here. Tom and I did participate with Dr. Skinkis and Dr. Freitas in exit interviews with both Lily and Michael. We got some very good feedback, and our intention would be to have new candidates talking to Dr. Skinkis. We have some applications that have come in. This is we'll have a recommendation in a July timeframe, so we'll keep this item on here for future discussion. Next item, IASB representative. Laura, do you want to take this one?
Okay, just very simple. The IASB is, I just want to pull up one of my PDF. I should have been doing that while I was, sorry, let me grab my file here. Right here.
Do you want me to jump around and come back?
No, here it is, okay. So the IASB, the Illinois Association of School Boards, is over 100 years old. It's a professional association. There are about 840 school districts in Illinois. 99% of the districts are members of this association. Its goal is to help train and give resources and tools to school board members. So they have an annual meeting, a triple I. They encourage you to even attend an international meeting. One of the things that I like about them is they have a bias, and you know that it's their bias, that they always want district control. And what the IASB does recognize is that there are vast differences in the state of Illinois. And being a delegate and going to the delegate meetings, you hear the conversation for our member boards from Southern Illinois, and it's like another state. Their needs are so different than our needs. And many of them do not have funding, and just so completely different. It really took me by surprise the first time I heard those discussions. And at the delegate meeting, what the Illinois Association of School Boards says is it levels the playing field so that everybody gets one vote. Whereas, Chicago is a school board with over 100,000 students. So by the Illinois School Code, they don't have to follow that, some of those laws. And if they voted by portion, they would always overwhelm the vote. And they would start to steer policy and different agenda items for the state of Illinois, whereas the association helps to equalize that. They also have a resolution mechanism, kind of a process, where they help school boards that really want to see something become law or policy in Illinois law to develop a resolution, go through the process, and then it gets voted on by one representative from every board. And so nothing can be, voted down by the larger boards. It gets an equal hear. That doesn't make it a law in the state of Illinois. Then what happens is then it is lobbied in Springfield by the IASB. So it's a mechanism for voice for all districts equally. It gives training. They train boards constantly on their 6 governing principles. Their website is chock full of information. The 6, I love it. The board clarifies its purpose. We did that with our mission statement. And then we'll set our goals. We connect with our community. We employ our one employee. The board employs one employee. It's our superintendent. He's our CEO. And then we give the CEO guidance that runs the district. We monitor what we have set as our goals. That is our job. The IASB has many workshops. The one on monitoring the goals is excellent. I've attended that, and I have the book, so I'll share that with you, some of the work we did on that. The 4th is, with the board, we delegate the authority. So we let our CEO do the job. We've set the goals. We've said this is what we believe the community expects of us, and we believe in our CEO to make it happen. And then we take responsibility for ourselves. And, we do this through the board. We're accountable. We follow the Open Meetings Act, and we have public comment, and we listen to our community in our mission statement. So what the person is, so that just gives you a brief introduction. On the website, you can see more. They do, searches for new superintendents, new principals. They did our policy manual. This district, about 12 years ago, we had our own policy manual. We went with the IASB's online policy manual, and literally they came, and the board spent 4 hours for a night, 4 nights a week for about 3 weeks in a row. And we went through every single policy in RB's old manual, and we compared to the states and ours, and we tweaked or threw out, and then every quarterly they update us on changes in the state, which is a huge service for a school board, because there's no way we could know. There's over 100 proposals that come to this Springfield every year. So what the person who is the delegate or the representative, Deanna came with me to a meeting as the representative for several years. In any meeting, every district only gets 1 vote. All board members are welcome to attend all the meetings. You're welcome to attend. The only meeting everybody can attend is the delegate meeting because there's just not room. But when you're at the meeting, only 1 board member can vote. So when Deanna and I went to the first meeting, Deanna got there before me, and she got the paddle. So even though I was the representative, Deanna was going to vote for our district that day. And again, that means that
I think I handed the paddle back to you.
No, I think you were signed up, yeah.
Okay.
And what it says is that it's not really important, like whose name, but what they want is a point of contact. And again, it's every district gets 1 vote, so that larger districts or more wealthy districts can't sway an opinion or sway an agenda in the state. And so there's a lot to do there. Very important for the delegate meetings. We are always there. We vote. The delegate represents the board. There were some hot issues. WGN was there doing this. There's been times in my 12, 14 years doing that where I didn't agree with the board, but I had to vote the way the board, we had discussion here. The board said, this is how we feel, and that's the vote that goes to the delegate meeting. So if anybody wanted that position, I'm happy to relinquish that. Or if you want to, or I'll keep that position and I'll invite all of you to continue to come. We've had more attendance, but with COVID, it's been odd. Usually, we've had a strong attendance at the West Cook dinner meetings. There's a speaker. There's a spring and a fall one. And then you get to speak and visit with other board members from other districts, which is also informative. Planning meetings, Oak Park, with your school board, they are very proactive and they do a lot of interesting things. You really get to hear how other boards are doing things differently, or, and that you can kind of expand what you're doing.
I think that's a great summary. So how frequently are those meetings?
So there's, it's important that you're there at the III meeting for the delegate meeting. That is number one. There's a planning meeting in June. That's kind of key because then you have a voice and you help. I think you attended one of those with me, Deanna, where you get to vote on the topics about what will be discussed at the spring and fall dinner. Then there's a dinner meeting where the whole board is invited to come. There's a business meeting ahead of time where if there is a vote, there's only one vote for the board. If the delegate's there, they would make the vote. If the delegate's not there, any board member from this board could make that vote, as long as it's just one. So you get 2 dinner meetings, you get the conference, you get the delegate meeting, you get a planning meeting. Those are the main staples. And then there's education in between.
No, and I would suggest they have, they're frequent emailers, obviously, with the Springfield agenda. I'm not sure if you guys have gotten into your RB account, but they probably on a daily basis with Springfield happening right now. And their publications, I think, are very good.
Yes.
They have an excellent school finance publication. They have some
Yes.
other materials that I think you recommended, I think Mona's recommended in the
Yeah.
past. So I think we put this on here to give the overview, to see if anyone was interested in, as Laura phrased, anyone else was interested in representing the board or to go with Laura to one of these meetings, kind of open it up for discussion.
Well, I would encourage everyone to go to the West Cook dinners. I went to 2 of them, I believe, and I found them very informative. It is really nice to talk to other board members from around the, West Suburban and South Suburban area. The speakers were both very interesting. So it would be nice to, I can't really commit to anything, but even if we attended on some kind of cycle basis to be there, if people could fit it in their schedule. I think it was on like Wednesday nights, if I'm not mistaken, or does it move around?
It moves around, and
Okay.
so when you're at the planning meeting, we try to find a date where there are no board meetings, typically the 5th Monday of every month, because that's not regular. So
Right.
that's a good day. Whenever there's a 5th week, that day is because you can't schedule your board meeting on the 5th week.
Only if you want to have it
Right.
once a year.
Right, so, those days become, desirable to have the dinner meetings. And again, the dinners, the entire board is really encouraged to come for the dinners, because there's a speaker and you can mingle.
So if I could suggest the next meeting that is scheduled, and I think Mary Ann's done this in the past, but include it in the Friday update so people can make an accommodation with their schedule. And then, I think, Laura, I assume you're okay serving as a resource about IASB.
Absolutely.
And so I think people can ask Laura questions about, is this a good one to go to? Is this not a good one to go to? What do you recommend? Is that
Yeah,
an appropriate
absolutely.
path forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't believe we need a vote to maintain you as a representative unless someone thinks that we should make that a formal position. But I think you've been the designee for some time. I think that makes
Yeah, one
sense
of
to
the things,
continue.
the last thing is, they do have like a master board, so if you're used to getting CEs, which you are, so, I've gone through their master board program. I have the MORSAD, and I'm part of the leadership, I even forget what they even call it, but, certain classes to take. That's a nice option, and as they come out with COVID, everything's been odd, because, when you have the opportunity to go in person, then you break out into small groups with other boards, and that is rich and, really very, you learn quite a bit, because you're with other people. So, as we get more opportunity to go, even though you're not the delegate or representative, I would encourage to try and grab some of those CEs, grab some of that education. Not only does it inform your board work, but you'll find it'll inform your committee work at your jobs. So,
Any other questions for Laura on that? Thank you. That was actually very helpful. It kind of segues into the next item, which is one of the functions that IASB does offer is a board evaluation. And our board policies account for this under state statute, under IASB, to do what's, it's not a self-evaluation, it's an IASB-directed evaluation of board processes. And I think it was Laura who suggested we discuss this at the last meeting. I know these are challenging to schedule, so if we can defer this and give some of us a little time to come up for air and maybe talk about it a little more in depth if we want to proceed. We may need to schedule it 3 months kind of in advance. Is that,
yeah, so
it may take some timing and some challenges there.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I suggested is because whenever we have a new board, because we've got a couple new members and there's a change, it gives you kind of a baseline of where your board's at. It kind of gives you some goals. Where do we want to grow together? You know, when Dr. Skinkis came on, he was brand new. He had 7 volatile board members, and the ISB representative said, oh, he shook his head. Do you remember that when Jeff shook his head and said, good luck, Dr. Skinkis?
Yeah.
It was a very difficult time in the district. That meeting was very good because it helped us, you know, lay out on the table, you know, there are a lot of differences, but what the real issues and work was. And we fought through it and worked through it and did a lot of good work. And, you know, the 7 of us were together for 8 years. And, you know, by the end of those 8 years, it was almost seamless. So I have found that that was it's kind of like premarital counseling in some ways, you know, you put your differences on the table and you're like, here's our combined goals, you know, where we're going to go, you know. So that's my suggestion.
We did this last spring. If you remember, before we did the community workshop, we had the workshop with just the IASB presenter, and we went through some of these standard operating procedures and some of that as a board. And then we were supposed to meet back to do the goals, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So.
And now there's actually a new representative from IASB, right? I just read
Correct.
that, so we have a new.
I think the lady that maybe ran our workshop
Oh, okay.
might have got that
I didn't
position.
recognize
Yeah,
the
there
name.
was just actually another email about that a day or two ago. I haven't
Okay.
gotten to it yet, but yes. Who's running the show in that
But I would
area?
think if this is something the board pursues, it's probably, I would strongly encourage, let's get through the summer of getting the new board members acclimated, getting ready to open school and post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And then, you know, something we can maybe transition to in the fall.
And I think the only concern, I think, Ramona, you had raised this about, it's challenging to schedule them sometimes, right? It takes some time. So,
Yes.
yes. So my suggestion, let's keep it on here as a discussion item and not take any action right now or direct the administration to do anything on this, but let's keep it as an item. And as we, in the coming months, you know, start goal discussions, it may become very apparent that we want IASB in to help guide that discussion at the same time. So I think that's a fair way to move forward.
So those are 2 separate things, though. The ISB to help with goal setting is very different.
Oh, no,
than-
I
okay,
understood.
okay.
Yeah. I was just saying, as we start some of that
Okay.
dialogue, the need for the former may become more apparent.
Okay.
Right? And I think that might persuade us to get that scheduled at some point. Any other IASB comments, questions? We did E.
F.
Yeah, F, General Communications Board Operating Procedures. So I did want to spend a few moments on this. This is a document that Dr. Skinkis sent out, and to his point, we worked on with, I think you've worked on it with prior boards, with IASB during our mission statement when we had that retreat with them. And it's a document that it's kind of like how the board operates with the superintendent. And I wanted to make sure that we were all focused on it to see if there were any omissions, any questions, any clarifications, just so that there's a shared understanding to move forward. You know, the summary is, and I think it's in the board packet again, so thank you. There's the weekly update, the Friday updates that now new members have received. We get that every Friday afternoon, and it has a fairly comprehensive list of activities happening and what's new and kind of the hot button items for the district. Emergency communication, administrative reports, and then the advisory council. So I'm going to stop there kind of on the superintendent reporting out. Any questions or comments or clarification? Okay. On the Board of Education reporting out, and again, this all tracks back to certain board policies, which we've all looked at, and it's good to do a refresher on. It's about Open Meetings Act violations fundamentally, but also just how board emails are received, how they're distributed, how the superintendent delegates those emails and asks for a response, how we place agenda items on the board agenda, and then the final section is on communicating with the media. So did anyone have any questions or comments? I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to it to make sure that we were all moving at the same pace and had a shared understanding. If there's something missing from this document that we should talk about, let's do that. If there's something that we disagree with, let's talk about it. Okay. The only item I'm going to highlight on here, because it's my just how I tend to operate with the board packet. We get it on Friday, and then I normally submit questions to the superintendent. And I really would encourage board members to do that so that we can see how everyone's thinking through different issues, and not with the expectation that there's a response from the administration prior to the board meeting, but it also helps the administration clarify their presentation and bring some additional details to that I think collectively help us move the issues forward. So any questions? Laura, do you have anything to, I mean, you've seen this in a couple iterations. You're comfortable with it?
Very nice.
Yeah. I think it's a good document.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'll stop talking, I apologize. District goal setting, I think we table for now, and we do bring up in a future meeting. And then,
Do we bring it up at a future meeting, or, I think this is an important one, where, however you want to, approach this, but we have to do this, we have to do it in less than 2 years, because this is
Yes.
what contracts are based on.
absolutely.
And so, and I'm gonna throw it out, I would recommend that we, commit to a Saturday morning, kind of like, give a little extra time what we're thinking about some goals, because then it's easier to kind of tweak them. But to kind of get them out, and then you can start to caress them. Some are gonna be kind of straightforward. The most difficult part is you're gonna have to decide what is the evidence that will meet the objective that the goal's been met. What will you accept as evidence, and whatever you go.
Right. So my suggestion is, since this is, honestly, it's a, kind of a first meeting in many
Right.
ways, that we keep this as a discussion item so that we have that very discussion about Saturday planning, what kind of background and material does everyone want to look at to prep for that Saturday meeting. We can maybe have that in a board meeting or two, but not waiting too long. I absolutely agree with you on scheduling.
Yeah, so I'm just tossing that out, so as you expand on that, I'm tossing out that maybe, expanded meeting on that, or even an evening, whatever, an expanded meeting on that, some kind of content. I can give you my booklet from that workshop, if you see anything that, take from it to throw into that. Yeah.
Okay, so I just think, I didn't want to have too much discussion here, but absolutely, I think we all know this, we have our work cut out for us on this one. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah.
And that being said, Mr. Durkin, update on apprenticeship opportunities.
2 Wednesdays ago, myself, Dr. Skinkis, Dr. Freitas, Beth, and then a number of counselors were guests at the Plumbers Union Local 130 training program on West Washington Boulevard. And they gave us a grand tour of their training facility, and we met a number of apprentices currently serving or currently going through the program, answered a lot of questions. I was really enthused by the response and just the opportunities that are present there that I hope we can get our students more acclimated to, because a number of the apprentices that we spoke to were people that may have already started a different job. Maybe they went to college. A number of them went to college and decided that they wanted to work into the trades. But they have a lot of college debt behind them. And so, this is something that we're slowly going to be working on. But I think that was a great experience, because it gave the counselors and the admin team the firsthand look at how they operate. There were some great questions, and I would ask Dr. Kevin and Dr. Hector to provide input, your experiences there.
I thought it was a great experience. I think Bill did a great job summarizing it. Best planning on attending the meeting in August to provide an update on where we're at with all the different union trades that Bill's set up meetings with, and to see if any of our current graduates graduating on Friday are actually going to take advantage of some of the apprenticeship programs and information that we've put up on the website. And she usually reports out on the graduation rate, so I wanted to provide her some time to come, and schedule her accordingly. But I think the one thing that we walked out of there with, and I know Dr. Freitas and I talked about it, is trying to identify a way where if we can connect with some of these trade programs to where students in their senior year can start working into these apprenticeship programs and completing some of this training, that we could count it almost like a dual credit, like as part of their elective credits, so that they can, begin working towards this as soon as possible, and trying to almost find a way to where, should the numbers present themselves as this grows, we even talked about with the 130 local, like if the numbers ever got to a point to where we had that much interest, they would be willing to send one of their trainers to the high school and begin training and working with our students and almost run it as a daily class. And I think, that's the big picture where we're trying to get to, is so that kids, just like we're promoting AP and just like we're promoting dual credit with Triton, the third option would be, here's an opportunity to start working towards your apprenticeship in one of the major trades.
Yeah, and it's not just plumbing, but, maybe the
correct.
auto mechanics.
Everything. Iron workers, we had talked with the pipe fitters, sprinkler fitters.
Pipe fitters just announced that they are opening up, have applications. They're taking applications for the next month or two. And I'm going to shoot an email over to Beth and ask her to post something on the website. But, there's a lot of different trades. I think you saw for yourselves that the facilities that they have are state-of-the-art, so it's really impressive training, and it's a skill they can have for life. I think it's a positive thing that we can offer a future for our students who elect not to go to college. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we want to put them in educate them about opportunities that are available. Ultimately, it's their choice.
Thank you.
I think the biggest thing that came out of that meeting for our counselors is sometimes when our parents are hearing some of the stuff we're doing on Naviance and talking to some of our students about these apprenticeships and these trades, there's sometimes this perception like you're not promoting my kid to go to college. And the interesting thing is that day during our tour, they had 10 apprentices there, and of those kids, a lot of them had gone to college or had 2-year degrees and now are 27, 28 years old going back into the trades because the job market and the student loan debt they had, and there were more opportunities to grow, and some of them were using that and their associates to open up their own plumbing business. And so there were some really cool things that I think our job as a public high school is to make sure we're providing students with all avenues and all options. And so I think this is an untapped resource that we're going to continue to unfold.
I look forward to hearing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I want to tell you, what I really took away, from that experience, and thank you, Bill, again, for setting that up. When I asked the apprentices, what can we do as educators? Promote the trades, do trips, to places like a local 130, get the kids here, work with us, engage with us, help the students find their way. So that's what, we're going to do. And that's what, thank you, Bill, for your efforts, right? We're promoting the trade. You've seen the updates, to our website, we're gonna, plan opportunities for our kids to visit these institutions and these places.
Yeah, and they're very open to
Yep.
visits. They
Oh, yeah.
said if they have at least 5 kids, that they'd be able to, they'd be happy to open it up and do a tour. And it was interesting because we asked them, hey, are other high schools doing this? And they said, no. So I look at this as an opportunity. We could do something good.
That's right.
So,
Wow,
I
and
think it's
look-
great because I saw on the decisions page 1 or 2 seniors that are going into the trades, so
Awesome.
I think it's great.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Well, more to come in August, that's good. Go ahead.
sorry.
No, I was just saying that I'm looking forward to the full presentation then, that'll be great.
There are some changes going on at Des Plaines Valley Region, which is our consortium that feeds students from RB into Triton, and the director of the Career and Technology CTE program over the last decade plus since I've known her is Ann Cothran, and she is retiring this year, so there will be someone new in that position. And in the past, RB has participated in activities where Cisco, the Chicago, I think I'm getting this right, but
You're right.
yeah, Cisco.
Chicago, or Construction Industry Service Corporation, conglomerate of all the different trades and apprenticeship unions, get together, and they have set up with various high schools that feed into Triton, and give the opportunity for students to come and see what it is, whether it's the roofers union, masons, carpenters, and so on. So there's opportunities that are out there, and I'll certainly bring some of those back
Sure.
to Bill and then anyone else to show that there are a lot of options out there, and they come with payment rather than debt for students to begin a career right away out of high school. So I have a student at my job who is starting his apprenticeship in the electricians union starting in 2 weeks. So his graduation and then into the workforce, and then talking about that with students, they quickly learn that being in an apprenticeship program doesn't mean you didn't go to school. You're going to school to learn a lot. So impressing upon students how much there is to learn is out there. And so, as you know, you saw it with what they offer at the
And interesting thing too is that they offer, you go into one of these union apprentice programs, you have an opportunity to go to a 2-year online college. I believe it was Gateway College.
Yep.
And you basically go for free. You might have to pay for textbooks, but if you are in an apprenticeship and you want to feel that you want to get a 2-year education as well while in the apprenticeship, it's free. And I'm pretty sure it's Gateway College. But another unique thing that just to make the kids aware of.
Great. Thank you. Any additional discussion items? Anyone? Okay. Moving on to report, Dr. Freitas.
That's President's report.
So I kind of started.
Apparently my reading skills are not very good. So
I'll pause.
No. I skipped over Dr. Skinkis, so superintendent's report.
Yeah, so there's no president's report?
No, there's no president's report.
Michael Lilly, do you have any student advisors report?
Yeah,
Okay.
Hard
First
to
meeting,
say.
first meeting.
Yeah, really.
I just wanted to thank all the staff, like Dr. Freitas says, for giving us. I think I had a good senior year. I thought it was normal for me because I was in school most of the time. I got all the activities from Mr. Mannon. I think the staff did really well with giving us that senior year. I felt like I had one.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to tell all my fellow classmates, like, thanks for electing us last year, and then to make sure to vote, because I don't think enough people know how much this position, like, helps the board out. And I think that's when my fellow classmates vote for the next board members, that they should be really representative of the whole student body.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that I was able to have this opportunity with Michael, and I want to thank all you board members. It was great working alongside you, and again, the students, you know, it meant a lot that they chose us to represent them. And I had a great year as well. I really think that sports and like activities made up for a lot of what I was missing in my senior year. But, you know, I wish the best of luck to the incoming student advisors, whoever they may be, and I hope they do a great job.
Thank you,
Thank
Lily.
you.
Thank you, Michael.
I apologize for skipping you.
Don't worry about it.
It wasn't personal at all. Dr. Skinkis, this is you.
All right, Superintendent's report. Curriculum Advisory Council met on Thursday, May 20th. That's Ryan Vandenhurst, and Ms. Towner. And we talked about proposed curriculum guide changes, which we are not proposing any for next year. With the COVID and coming back to school and opening up school, that is where our focus is. So there were no recommendations or proposed curriculum guide changes. Textbook adoption plan, we just went through the 3-year textbook adoption plan to bring everybody up to speed on how we kind of monitor our textbook purchases and why we do it on a 3-year projection cycle so that the board can prepare accordingly for future budget items. We did talk at length about world language programming, and so the 3 steps that we put in place were that we were going to do an interest survey from some of our feeder schools to see if there's languages they would like offered. We were going to also look at online options that have interaction, which at this point we currently could not find, but Beth is still looking. She updated me this morning. And to see if there are any dual credit options being offered from our local junior colleges, not only Triton, but Morton College or College of DuPage. Triton does not offer a world language program for current high school students for dual credit. Morton College had one, but they have a specific agreement with an IGA with only Morton High School. So that may be something we could look to see if there's a way to do add-on amendment to that. But the big thing would be we wanted to do an interest survey from our feeder school parents to see what the need is, right? Because we could say, oh, we need to do German, and then if our feeder school parents all fill out that they want Italian or Latin, we're going to have less kids taking German, and we're going to be in the same kind of predicament we're in right now. Will be sending out an article that was in the Tribune from the Sunday that Ms. Matana sent me. I sent it out to the Curriculum Advisory Council today, but we are not the only school that's dealing with this. It was an article about Barrington High School and Hinsdale High School District are also canceling some of their sections of foreign language classes because they're seeing a drop-off in student participation in some of those languages. And they were German, just like we were dealing in Mandarin. Most of their students are taking French and Spanish, which is kind of similar to where we're at. So I'll send out that article, and we'll continue to provide an update on that throughout the summer as we make progress on that. The post-pandemic practice document was shared with the whole board, and I think that's what will drive this committee of the whole meeting over the summer. We talked a little bit about MTSS, which is multiple tiered systems of services and interventions. And then we talked about the summer committee. Ms. Lindquist has been already working on reading a book and sharing a book with some of our instructional coaches, but by John Hattie, and it's called The Rebound. Instead of calling it Learning Loss, they're calling it The Rebound. So at this time, Curriculum Council advisory members, do you have anything else you want to share?
Sure. Well, first of all, the Rebound book is the follow-up or the companion book to the digital learning playbook, which came out in the fall in many schools, including, I think, RB used it as part of how do we roll out teaching on Zoom, right? So a remote learning playbook is what it was called. So this is the same authors. It's a follow-up. Hattie is quite the name in education right now. So the book is, I've thumbed through it. My copy is coming in a couple of days. So I think it's a good book. It's definitely worth, taking a look at. We talked briefly about MTSS. It stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports. It can be academic, SEL, and behavioral, either all or some of those things to support all the needs of all students. It's not a special ed programming thing. What they do is, RB has chosen 4 screeners or, assessments to give to kids to find out where they stand as far as, and it can be, again, it can be academics or SEL or behavior or all of them. And so it's, finding out what students need, and then it puts them into, or they use the data from the assessments to put students into 3 categories, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 3 is those of most need or greatest need. It allows for targeted interventions, again, using that data and the personalization of learning for those targets. And then the team that is in charge of that will do formative assessments, meaning smaller little things along the way to see if students are making gains to get back to where they need to be. So that's part of taking care of coming back better, the rebound, getting kids back on track where they need to be. So it's a very systematic, data-driven team approach to supporting students.
And Kylie's done a nice job putting this together. I think some of that was discussed in that post-pandemic PowerPoint that she put a lot of time into that will drive the summer committee. And we also, you'll see something tonight in Kristen's tentative budget presentation about the hiring of an additional psych from our using portion of our ESSER funds. And this additional psych will allow time for one of our current psychs to work with Kylie on some of this data analysis to make sure we're putting appropriate interventions into place as we begin to assess what kids need to make up or what kids need to supports from what occurred over the last 14 months, 15 months with the pandemic. So I thought that was a good meeting. Ryan, anything else?
I think you just hit on what the big takeaway from the mix of the post-pandemic practices Google slide presentation that we saw and the teachers saw from a couple weeks ago, and then the MTSS being a mixture of that, and then following up. I mean, I think you said it. So this summer we'll hear more about it. I guess my thing is using that term, getting away from the idea of learning loss, and getting more toward where are we going to go from here. What's done is done. Let's
Rebound.
Move on and get to proper SEL and support for those coming back and certainly going to experience something different next year than what they went through this year, or hopefully, I should say. And, I think there's a bunch of things that were mentioned with regard to the various testing programs to see where people are and how we can support the students next year. So, that seems to be it. We're ready to roll.
Okay, great. Facilities Advisory Council there's a meeting scheduled for next week. So that is Tom Jacobs and Laura Haruska. We're doing a Zoom meeting next week just to kind of get an update on our fourth quarter QBR from Aramark, as well as some of the summer projects and things we'll be addressing, and also just doing a quick review of the facilities rental agreement. Finance Advisory Council met just yesterday on the 24th, and that was Ms. Gaska and Ms. Zalis, and we went through basically the financial standing. Our tentative budget was where we spent the majority of our time, and the use of our ESSER funds. And so Kristen has a presentation on that tonight, so I don't want to cut into that too much unless Lorena or Deanna will have anything they want to add. I think we'll touch on that more during probably the budget
Yeah,
presentation.
I'm happy waiting. Thanks.
No update from personnel. Policy Advisory Council, no update. I do want to put on your radar 6:185. It's a remote learning policy, and it's an optional policy currently in that IASB policy manual. But this is something like when you start seeing these emails from the legal counsel, like to be prepared, like in the event in that June 11th update, if something should come out from the state in regards to having an alternative option for remote learners that absolutely cannot return to school, we may need to adopt this policy. So at this time, I have no action for you, but I at least wanted to make sure I reported it out in my superintendent advisory update. And then purchase, sale, lease, or land, no update on this. This is tabled for at this time. And that concludes my superintendent report.
Thank you. Dr. Smetana.
Good evening.
Good
Tonight
evening.
I will provide the Board of Education an update on our financial information as of April 30th, 2021, and this represents 83% of the fiscal year. A general summary of my report begins on page 10, but I'm going to jump to the next page, which is the monthly summary report. The total operating revenue for the month was $2,148,515, with 42% coming from property tax and CPPRT, 34% coming from federal and state reimbursements. A large portion of this was our food service reimbursement, but we did also get some additional money from special education and ESSER 1 and 2, and then 9% coming from evidence-based funding, which is our state funding. Total operating expenditures for the month were $2,304,405, with 69% towards salary and benefits. That's a little low than normal because 11% went for purchase services, which is primarily food service between us and the satellite programs, and we're both participating in the grant, so that's really a wash, but the expenditures were high this month, as well as the township treasurer fees hit this month, and then 9% for special education tuition. Page 12 was provided in error. My apologies. It's some math going on in the background to make sure things balance. So going to page 13, this is the monthly financial statements. The first page are the fund balances, which show that the district currently has a surplus in its operating funds due to receiving spring property taxes and grant federal reimbursements throughout the year. We'll see that decrease significantly over the next 2 months, and given, I'll report out on this in the next 2 months, but we did receive a lot of unexpected revenue this year, and so there is a chance, we will finish close to a balanced budget for this fiscal year. So I'm closely monitoring that, but that's why there's currently a operating fund balance of a little over $4 million. On the next page is a summary of revenues, which shows that the district has received 99.9% of our budgeted revenue for the year. This percent is higher than this time last year. However, the actual revenue is only up by $329,000, and that's due to, we really took a conservative approach to budgeting for our revenue this year. There was a question submitted in regards to property tax, so I will verbally share this information and be sure to include it in the next 2 months. But we track property taxes by 2 line items in several different funds. One is called prior year property tax, which is the tax that we collect in the fall, and then the current year, which is the tax that we collect in the spring. So looking in the fall, or that prior year line item, we've collected to date $9,774,712, which is 100.26% of what we budgeted. In the spring, we get more property tax in the spring than we do in the fall. And so to date in the spring, we've collected $10,219,914. And that's approximately 92.69% of what we had budgeted for. Keep in mind, I do anticipate more property tax coming in May and in June, and that's different than a typical year because the county extended that deadline to May 15th. So if we look at the combined total, from what we budgeted, we're at about 96% of the budget for property tax. Just some background information for the board to remember. We typically budget 99% collection of property tax. This year, due to COVID, we collected 97%. So that difference is about $450,000 less than what we normally budget for. Moving on to the summary of expenditures, the district has spent 79.1% of the budgeted expenditures for the year. This amount is down from this time last year. And I think it will, as we track the next 2 months, will continue to be down a little bit, which also will contribute to the closer to balanced budget than we initially planned for. And then just as I do every month for the board's information, there are 2 supplemental reports. The first is a statement of revenues and expenditure report for the month of April. I don't go over this in detail at the meeting, but it lists all the revenues and expenditures for the month, and it also compares budget to actual for each line item. And then the second report that I always provide is the student activity account summary for the month. And this report, it's important to keep in mind that negative account balances represent actually positive fund balances for those accounts. One thing to note is that the testing account will always have a very big balance at this time of year, and that is because that's where we pay the AP fees out of. And so in June or July, we'll get that bill and we'll pay all of that off, and that balance will drop significantly. That concludes my report for this evening. Are there any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much. Dr. Freitas.
All right, welcome aboard again. Here's the principal's report. So to best prepare students for the transition back to a full day, we'll be standardizing the following processes, starting with executive functioning practices. And a special shout out to my assistant principal for curriculum instruction, Ms. Kylie Lindquist, who's been a leader in this. She's fantastic to work with. So we'll be implementing standardizing executive functioning practice, such as posting the daily agenda, posting unit calendars. We'll be establishing common routines, such as having all the teachers meet and greet the students, post their objectives and wrap up. Doing some restorative practices, having teachers allow students to redo assignments, because the ultimate objective is for you to learn. And many of our teachers get this, and they're already, doing this. We'll be building community. Each month, our restorative team will be sharing, lessons on motivations and goal setting, because we believe these will help the students be successful as they transition back. As mentioned earlier, we'll also be screening, because we really need to know what's going on inside students' minds. We'll be doing a satchel screener for any SEL, challenges. We'll be doing practice PSAT, SAT, STAR assessments, monitoring students 3-4 times a year so they best prepare for the SAT exam, and of course supporting our course-specific assessments. Everything that we'll be doing here, the goal is to meet the building goals. I've always presented on academics, but when I really think about, the upcoming school year and what I've heard from this board, we need to get the kids back. So my building goal, the first one, is to bring over 1,600 students back. There'll be a few, that for some reason may, opt out, but the goal is to bring the students back. We're gonna have every student identify one trusted adult. Because we know, right, science says that if kids trust somebody and have an advocate, they'll be better in school and they'll stay in school and be successful in school. And then, of course, we'll be increasing students' diversity. The goal is to increase students of diverse backgrounds and advanced placement by 1% annually. And of course, to other board members, I'm always open as you guys, of course, draft and create the goals, to make that, part of my daily job as well. School culture and operations, as I mentioned a little earlier, I met with the 8th graders from Hauser virtually, and I will be doing a video tomorrow for SE Gross and Camargue, encouraging all the 9th graders to participate in summer school programming. On Friday, May 14th, Kylie, myself, and Dave, we met with the Indivisible West Suburban League to discuss what RB is doing to be more diverse, inclusive, and equitable, and I will be sharing a detailed summary a little further down. Cap and gown pickup, we already took care of that. Senior classroom material drop-off. Seniors, the seniors have 4 days to drop off their materials from May 24th to May 28th, from 8 to 3:05. They will, get the materials to the teacher, but if for some reason they can't see their teacher, we always put out a few tables in the atrium where they could drop off their materials. The class of 2020-2021 parade is Wednesday, tomorrow, starting at 1:15. We've shared the route with the community and with the students. Same route as we did last year, okay? Wave with us, have your signs, but this will be a parade led by administrative staff and teachers. History was made during our senior awards on May 19th. For the first time in school history, we awarded over 30 students the seal of biliteracy, which gives them college credit at public universities. And there were so many dozens of students that earned the commendation towards biliteracy. Hey, Michael, didn't you get that?
I got the seal, yeah.
Bam! So see, you're one of the first RB students in school history. So you're going to get some credit on that. Proud of you, but way to go. Activities and athletics. Several summer athletic and camps will be held this upcoming summer. We have all the information on our website, so parents and students can visit that. And now I would like to take everyone's attention to the executive summary action plan on race and equity. This was the guide that I used when we had the conversation with the Indivisible West Suburban League. And I'm really proud of this board because as you guys drafted your mission statement, I highlighted three words, committed to equity. So I know you guys value the work we're doing, and thank you for that. And this is what we're doing in the building level to support equity. First, it starts with supporting professional development for staff. We've been working with Dr. Yvette Dubiel, one of the leading experts in equity. She's worked with over 100 schools. So far, we've completed 2 out of the 10 trainings. We've completed Equity 101 and Understanding Implicit Bias. We have 8 more trainings scheduled. As you can see, this takes us from August all the way to February. The plan is already set. We've created our restorative justice team that is filled with our psychs and social workers and teachers. We provided PD to the ICs and staff on restorative practices in classroom. And during our Institute Day in August, we'll be doing treatment agreements to establish a common practice for the school. A treatment agreement basically is an understanding between teachers and students on how to treat one another in the classroom. But that's important for those educators, right? Creating a common policy just creates greater buy-in. We sent a teacher to the Harvard Graduate School seminar on race, equity, and leadership in May of 2019. Our Minority Empowerment Club presented to all the staff during one of our Institute Days. We've done cross-cultural competency training by Dr. Lourdes Ferrer. This was done in October of 2018. And I want to make clear that this work started and has been started prior to my arrival. So I landed in a good place with good people that believe in race and equity, and that should drive our work. You know, I'm blessed as a principal to be moving it forward. We've encouraged parental involvement in the Race and Equity Committee that was founded in the fall of 2020. We have students, parents, teachers, administrators, and outside educators. And if you can't make a meeting, Board of Education member, that's okay. I tell people, guys, come to the next one. It's not a problem. I understand that things happen. And also this year, we'll be taking our BPAC parents to the State Bilingual Conference. Growth in curriculum and instruction. We've transformed the Western Civilization curriculum to a world history curriculum. We'll be teaching Latin American history for the upcoming 2021 school year. We've communicated to staff to include Black and brown figures in their respective content areas, and people are doing it. We're developing curriculum in all content areas to include multiple perspectives and acknowledgement. We're continuing to teach our urban studies program. We've done trauma-informed practices, cultural competency, implemented the STAR assessment progress monitoring tool, and have the seal of bilaterally, which bridges that, which encourages equitable language opportunities and recognition. Expanding human resource and hiring opportunities. Since, if you guys go down since 2015, and these people are still here, that's what's special. Guys, we've been hiring diverse candidates in the areas of special education, school psychology, social sciences, academic intervention, paraprofessionals. So we've been doing a pretty good job in hiring diverse candidates to this day. And again, what's important that these people, they like this environment, they like the support, and they're still here with us. We've recommended updates to district policies, and thank you for the Board of Education members for supporting the elimination of hats and hoods and the 2-inch strap requirement. We've eliminated that, and you see the glow. And students, hey, I can wear my hat, I can show my favorite team, you know? Guys, learning happens. Nothing's going on, you know? With a hood, I'm able to tell who the students are, our security and our team, so it's worked out really well because kids can really, you know, be themselves. We've supported students in extracurricular programming. Talking with the principal is a staple that I have monthly. We've done RB leadership forums where we bring clubs together. You know, the Minority Empowerment Club, the Organization of Latin American Students Club, we brought those clubs together. We've had restorative conversations. We've established the See Something, Say Something initiative, where if a kid sees something happening at school, they can let us know. We've done monthly SEL building lessons for the we have planned monthly lessons for the upcoming school year. We've supported and funded our culturally based clubs. I mean, I want the Board of Education, you guys see the work When it comes to inclusion, diversity, and equity, we do it in everything, from hiring to curriculum to extracurricular to parent involvement. We're really living our mission. Again, I'm not claiming victory. There's still a lot of work to be done, but that's why we're here. And that concludes my principal's report and the executive summary on race and equity.
One thing the administrative team talked about is we were going through this executive summary, and Ms. Dalis participated in the meeting with Dr. Freitas and Ms. Lindquist, Mr. Mannon, and the Indivisible group, and all the stuff we have been doing for the last several years. It wasn't just reactionary to the events of last summer.
That's right.
But the one thing we thought about that we, Hector and I are going to do is we'll clean this up a little bit more. And we probably should just have a tab on the top of our website that just talks about race and equity, so people can reference easily to see all the stuff we're doing, and also, a place where there's resources available, or if they would like to submit suggestions or have his meeting updates so that we can highlight it better. So
Yes.
when there are questions in the community or things that come up, there's a centrally located place advertising all the good that we've committed to over the last several years.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think one of the takeaways I had is that, there's been a lot of work. There's still a lot of growth to be done,
Of
right?
course.
We're only as good as we are on any given day.
Yep.
So I think the communication aspect of this is important. So I don't know if we're open to getting regular updates on these initiatives as part of the principal's report. I think that would be helpful as a subset of your report out to talk about when there's been an institute day or, an issue, or how do we call to action, get more parents involved in that race and equity committee. I think that participation in these things tends to fluctuate, and we want a core group, I think, to really focus on these issues and provide some meaningful deliverables and suggestions back to the board and the administration.
Do you mind we ask a few questions within there? So a couple things. What is the feedback that we're getting from teachers in terms of the professional development from Dr. Yvette Dubiel? Are we getting any sense of how the teachers are responding to it? Obviously, it's early.
Sure.
We're just getting started with it, but is there a sense that they're connecting with it? It's also a strange year with, I'm sure, what were Zoom meetings as opposed to, in-person dialogue, and it's certainly a lot harder to connect. But I guess going forward, I'd like to hear more about it. That's personal, but I'd also like to know, how are the teachers responding? Is there some survey that's going out so that we can get some sense of their reaction to it, their intentions in using the information to guide their own classroom management structures, their own practices in teaching equitably, and how they view the information as it comes in as to how they'll turn it into something usable. And I don't mean I want something from the teachers. I want to know what are their thoughts about it.
Sure. So I think you said it right on the money, Ryan. People are connecting with it, and they want more of Dr. Dubiel. When I came here, I established a parking lot, which is a online forum where teachers can submit comments. In 2 years, we've had over 200 comments, and people, are engaging. I think your survey idea is a great idea. And people have said, Dr. Freitas, we want more of this. When can we see her? It is validated. Some people, this is my practice. I'm glad I'm doing the right thing. And others were like, what? This could enhance my practice. I've done, I've gauged teachers, informally as I do my walkthroughs and some of the feedback, I've received on the teacher parking lot that's open, 24 hours a day, but they're connecting and they want more of it, and that's what we planned it out for pretty much the next school year.
Okay. Are there any initiatives from the instructional coaches to extend those conversations among the teachers so that there's some collective discussion, so that it's not being put into single classrooms, but rather their teachers are, and teachers will naturally communicate with what they're doing, but is there any intention with how and I realize it's early, but is there any intention on how we can get collaboration and seek to, ultimately get some data on whether we're having an effect on the students in the classroom and their comfort levels, and obviously wanting more participation from our young students coming in and speaking truth to for lack of a better term, power. We want to hear more of that. So if things are going well in the classroom, it's probably going to be harder for us to hear because people don't talk about that. Whereas when things go poorly, we're going to hear about it. But I'd like to know more as this gets underway to have a sense of how it's impacting school climate and culture, that kind of thing.
So I think that we need to probably keep that and maybe embed that as part of maybe one of our goals.
Sure.
But we want to be careful not as board members to be like assigning different.
Nope, I am
reports.
not
Right.
asking for that. I'm asking
Right, and I
to
just
get a
wanna be
report
careful.
out on it. Yep.
But, I think it's,
So.
because it is part of our mission statement. So, we said our mission statement will kind of pour out the goals.
Sure.
And that would be a great, so keep that piece in mind, and then, we could be thinking about like you said, what's the evidence? What's the data that lets us know we're meeting that goal?
I have a question also. So, and my question goes towards what has been done to respond to the 2 students that came forward that evening? Because from where I'm sitting, again, brand new person, DEI is completely covered. Diversity, equity, inclusion, it's here. It's on the agenda. It's on the very neatly outlined plan. What seems to be missing is the belonging piece, because the students who came that evening clearly had something to say. And I'm wondering what has been done. Has anyone reached out to them to get more feedback?
Oh yeah, we met with them. We've met with them twice. After they came, we scheduled a meeting. The young ladies met with Mr. Mann and myself, and we met them frequently. I want to say 2 times formally, and then I see them around all the time. So they're definitely involved in this work. But we've met with them.
Because this is great. It looks really good, right? But I think Ryan said something that brought to mind what evaluation mechanisms are in place. So, for example, I see that the restorative justice team was established in 2019. Has that team been evaluated as far as what types of cases they've dealt with, what the resolution to those cases have been, if there have been cases, why, right? How could those cases be avoided? Were they handled according to practice? Because again, this looks great, but I'd like to I'm wondering about the evaluation piece.
So then we as a board, again, I think, what are we asking as a board? How far are we drilling down? I just want us to be cautious.
It was just, I'm
Right.
curious.
Right, but no one board, we got to be careful that our curiosity doesn't, because it sounds, from the bird's eye view, that we're asking for something very specific. Some of this information is protected. But as a board, as a global, what would satisfy the board so that you're comfortable knowing that this is happening, that it's being evaluated, that the kind of data you need to see that these needs or actions are being met?
So if I remember correctly, the Indivisible group came that evening, read the letter. They had some very specific requests that were outlined, correct?
Yes.
And one of those requests was, how are you, the school? How's the school responding to the students? And that's why I asked, because everything was covered. So we got the meeting notes from Indivisible, but the student response, or how we responded to the students, wasn't included. So I was just, again, wondering, can we check that off as well? We were given this information, so I was just curious to see if the students had been.
Of course.
Thank you.
Right, and again, as a larger board, how are our students of diversity feeling so how do we frame that? So this is a great precursor, again, because every week somebody can come, so we always want to have it as, the global discussion. So how are all students of diversity, are they feeling like they belong in this community? And what do we need? What is the evidence that we need to go down there?
I also think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but and I'm not saying that what Indivisible came to speak about was inappropriate or not actionable, but we don't only right? They don't charge us with things to do, so we have to be careful of that as well.
Oh, so again, because we were getting a report of the meeting with Indivisible, I was wondering,
Yeah.
right, if the student concern had also been addressed.
I think it's
That's
fine.
it.
Yeah, no, I
Yep.
think that's a good question. And I think in the future, Dr. Freitas, as you add this as a fourth bullet point to your principal's report, I think the restorative committee was established in 2019. In 2020, we had COVID. I don't know how much work they actually did. But as they start working with the staff and working with groups, having a quarterly update like we do on your principal report, maybe once a quarter or once a semester on here's what the restorative team did, here's some assessment data or survey data or number of cases or meetings they had with, peer mediation or with staff and students, right? There could be something you could do as we enter into next year and we get to implement all these resources.
Yeah.
So I think getting to it, it's asking what's out there. I don't think I'm putting any charge out there for them to do something. I'm asking what is being collected so that we could possibly request that information. So,
Right. And
again,
that's the way that we frame it, and it's a great precursor for our work is the
Sure.
goal. But when we start to ask our principal, it almost sounds, from the bird's eye view that we're like, okay, specific, but we could turn that around to a goal and evidence for
Sure.
that goal. And it is part of our mission statement and something that seems to be valued by the community. So it'll help us when we get to that decision, we can start thinking about it now. What kind of data would you want back? What kind of feedback? And then our administration team knows what they need to collect. They know what kind of assessments they need to look for. They know, what to report out on.
One last thing, and I do not remember what it's called, but I know as a board, we've discussed it in the past, but the students actually have a week where they highlight or spotlight some of the different clubs, and I know like one day is like, the environmental club puts the posters out and like says like, this is what it's all about, and reduce, reuse, recycle, and then the, the gender club or the minority empowerment club have a day, and then they put out all their posters. Do you guys know what that's, we obviously didn't do it this year, and maybe not even last year, because I want to say it comes in the spring, but.
I can only think of Future Bulldog Night. I don't know. Yeah, I know.
It's been done in the past, and it was like a whole week.
It used to be called Tolerance Week.
Tolerance
and the last
Week.
time we did it, we talked about coming up with a different name for it. And so we haven't done
bit of a
it.
different agenda.
Yeah, we haven't done it since.
Has it been like 3 years?
Yeah, because I don't think we
That's why
did
I don't know it.
we didn't do it last school year either, because it's in the spring. I believe it's usually in April. And so, yes, you're absolutely correct. All clubs have the option to participate in some capacity. It's usually run by the Association of Students of Tolerance, and they coordinate the event. It's a student-led event for the entire week, and they promote different facets of the school and different clubs and
Right,
organizations.
yes, thank you, Kristen, that's exactly what I was thinking of. So I don't know if you want to add that on here somewhere. Again, it has been done in the past, it seems to have phased out, but maybe something for the kids to reconsider, given everything that's going on. I don't know.
Can we ask our student advisors on, how do you feel that the race and equity is being implemented? Are you noticing differences or are conversations changing?
I mean, I definitely think that in the past year, there's been, more of a movement to include it more. But I do think that would be a good idea if we somehow did another type of week where we brought attention to it. But I know that Best Buddies or some other organization, they had Spirit Weeks this year where they, drew attention to mental health and other things. It wasn't necessarily race, but they did do certain issues. So it could be similar to that.
I do think, though, that we are highlighting those other clubs more, like Hip Hop Club, OLOS. Those have really been highlighted this year, I think, and the year prior. So I do think that there's a lot being done compared to my first 2 years in high school versus the last two.
I mean, I've never heard of Hip Hop Club, to be honest, but I know that AST is a big thing, and AST does a lot of really good stuff for that. and OWASP too. So
OWASP as well.
those are really big and important clubs.
So at the risk of piling on, I will say something else.
I was just wondering if we're moving on, but okay.
No, I just think I actually really, I mean, I'm just saying it to express my appreciation for asking the question to Ms. Gaska, because I've felt that if there's one experience that sticks out to me over the past year, under very difficult circumstances, is that there have been those times where members of the community had the courage to come to that white table, sit down, and read a statement. And so I think we have been able to do a better job as a board because people have spoken out. Now, when it is members of the school, i.e. students, who do that, on a highly sensitive topic like equity and inclusion and all of the above and belonging, I think it's I really appreciate you asking the question, because yes, there's also sensitivity. I mean, not everything is meant for public distribution, but just, right, if there's one thing that we would like to see when students have the courage to come up here and speak out on something that I'm sure is not easy, that we do everything we can to not only show the fact that we appreciate that they spoke up, that we do all of our homework, and then it's just a simple maybe reporting back, yes, we got them covered, and so thank you for asking that question.
Any additional comments, feedback on that? Thank you. Ready to move on? Old business, life safety items, capital improvement, sustainability?
No
Do we have
updates.
any?
I think we'll be able to provide an update at the June meeting after we do our facilities meeting on next week.
Next item under new business is waiving fees, summer school fees.
So this was added on later, just as a formality. I think, we've already announced and made public that, there would be no fees attached to any credit recovery or academic interventions, but because it is a financial issue, the board should take formal action. So I apologize that there's not an action sheet on there, but if we could have a motion.
Sure, I'll read the motion, and this is a money thing, so we need a roll call vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the waiving of fees for any credit recovery or academic courses offered during summer school 2021.
Academic intervention.
Academic intervention. I'll read it again. Do I have to say as?
No, I would just amend it
Start
to.
from start from the top.
Okay. But do I have to say as proposed during the 2020?
Sure.
Okay. Hang on. I want to write it down so I don't say it wrong again. Okay. All right, here we go, from the top. Board of Education, Township High School District, School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the waiving of fees for any credit recovery or academic intervention courses offered during the summer school 2021 as presented at the May 25th, 2021 board meeting.
Second by Tom Jacobs.
We get a roll call?
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Benhorst?
Yes.
Seamless.
Yes. Purchase of tractor?
So this is the tractor that Kristen put in her financial report at the end of April. Our other tractor was over 15 years old and was dealing with a lot of repairs. And so, Kristen, if you want to provide the update and how you use the purchasing consortium.
Sure. So I reached out to companies through Sourcewell, which is a purchasing cooperative. Purchasing the tractor through this cooperative meets all of the bidding requirements, and it also provides the tractor and the attachments necessary at a significant discount. The two different proposals were attached in the board packet, and they're also outlined below. So the Toro Groundmaster is a little over $48,000, and the John Deere Terrain Cut is $47,417.78. The administration is recommending the John Deere tractor because not only is it the cheaper option, but it allows the district to continue to use John Deere equipment. That's what all of our other equipment is, and so our maintenance staff is really great at using parts and fixing the existing John Deere tractors, so this would just make it easier. Additionally, the Toro model uses diesel fuel, and we currently don't have any equipment that uses diesel fuel. The maintenance staff did test out both models to make sure that they would be meeting the needs of the district. And so for these reasons, I'm recommending choosing a John Deere terrain cut with front mower plus attachments.
Now, this is a first read under new business, but it is the middle of summer and lawn mowing season, so we're kind of limping through right now, having to do some extra passes. So if we had to wait till June 8th, we could, correct?
Correct. I would, if we did wait, I would also bring the invoice under the bills, assuming that there are no questions, so that we could approve the purchase and then approve the bills that same night. But yes, we can wait till June 8th on this.
But if you got it approved tonight, it would make things move a little quicker.
Correct.
Any objections to approving this tonight?
No.
Okay. Mona, do you mind reading? the
Oh,
motion?
sorry. The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the purchase of a John Deere tractor and the associated attachments for a total price of $47,417.78 as presented in the May 25th, 2021 Board Agenda Packet.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Can we take the roll, please?
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruska? Yes. Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Van Horst?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes. Tentative budget FY22.
So the board will review the tentative budget for first read tonight. I would say this is your first time seeing the full budget presented. Okay, it's called a tentative budget because the way Illinois school finance works is we present a tentative budget. The board has, this meeting and the June meeting to review it. We ask that the board approve the tentative budget in June. By approving the tentative budget, what that allows is for the school accounts to have some demarcation of spending items and where expenditures and revenues will be placed and projected amounts so that we can continue to operate the school throughout July and August. The formal budget is not adopted and approved until September. And so the tentative budget, when it's approved in June, will be placed on display both on the website and in the business office throughout the summer. And then what happens is we continue to scrub the budget throughout June, July, and August, make any changes as things come in from the state, updates come in on tax appeals, interest on investments, all those types of things. We update the budget accordingly, and then we do our formal approval of the budget in September. So I know it seems like a weird cycle because you're really not approving a budget until after you spent out of it for 3 months, but that's kind of how school finance works. So that's kind of the long and short of school finance in regards to the budgeting perspective. I'll let Kristen go into some of the key points of today's budget so that you can have some time between now and the June meeting to look over.
Dr. Skink has covered a lot of what I was going to say, so I would encourage the board to take a look at in their time the revenue assumptions and the expenditure assumptions. This is really where we try to pull out either big line items that impact the budget or significant changes. It's really, kind of providing an executive summary for the board on the revenue side and the expenditure side. In the budget, there are a couple of tabs that aren't updated at this point, and I tried to highlight those in yellow on the actual PDF version on the top of those pages, and that's simply because we only have April 30th actuals. So I will update at the end of May. I will update that with May 31st actuals, but you won't see some of those summary items until we close out the fiscal year on June 30th. The projected deficit has decreased since the February projections due to the anticipated federal funding we'll receive from COVID-19. So the current anticipated deficit for fiscal year 22 is $105,376. For the Board members, you may remember, this is down significantly from what we projected in February. It's down by $893,326. We were projecting almost $1 million deficit. The reason that, we all of a sudden have this big swing is because since February, ESSER 3 came out, and we were told that we will receive a little over $1 million. Unfortunately, right now, the grant's not available, but we will be getting that process going. So going along with ESSER 3 and that $1 million, we wanted to be transparent as to how we plan on spending that money. So what is new in the budget that you'll want to take a look at is the ESSER 3 tab. For you right now, it's on Board Book page 56. And so on this tab, you'll see our tentative plan for how the district plans to spend this money. Some of this is going to change as things get fleshed out a little bit as we go through the summer. But you can see on the bottom, we plan to spend approximately 67% directly towards helping students recover any learning opportunities that they may have missed this past year, along with helping students develop social emotional competencies. The federal requirement is 20% of your money, and we significantly exceed this. Looking at the tab, I can go over, Dr. Skinkis, I'm assuming you'd like me to touch on?
I want you to touch on the ESSER because I think it's important for the board to know. We should always, this meeting and in the June meeting, we should highlight this because one of the requirements of the ESSER grant is to make sure we present how we're intending to spend those funds publicly. Obviously, all of our board meetings have public comment sections available so that if anybody wanted to comment on our plans of how we're going to spend the money. Also, it requires us to make sure we're dedicating at least 20% to learning loss or to addressing academic initiatives. And so I think this gives you a nice snapshot, and it also provides a nice snapshot to the community of how we're laying out our plan.
So I'll touch on some of the things, I won't go over every item, but I will touch on some of the things that maybe need a little explanation or are new to the board. First of all, beginning at the top, the reason there's a range is the initial estimate for ESSER 3 that we received was $909,000 roughly, and then an updated version came out and it was a little over $1 million. Since the grant's not available yet, we don't know exactly how much we're going to receive. One of the exciting things that's listed in here is the social emotional screener, Satchel, for all students. And kind of along with that is Sarah's In, which is really a presenter coming in and giving SEL lessons to our students. I believe that's going to be at the sophomore and senior level. Instructional software covers everything from continuing to have Google Meets and Zoom, Schoology, as well as other softwares that we've added this year to really enhance that experience virtually. And so we'll continue a lot of those software programs. Building safety, we feel it's important to add two additional safety personnel for additional staff coverage for lunches. There's going to be a need to really wipe down the tables and turn those spaces over very quickly as we have 5 lunches next year, as well as making sure we have coverage from the open of the school building, which is really early depending on the day, 5:30 or 6 in the morning, all the way till 10 o'clock at night. We did that this year with COVID, and there has been a great benefit to having that additional staff. So we have that in there. Additional 1.4 FTE, and that will likely, I believe, increase a little bit as well. But this is really, the additional FTE came from looking at our traditional class sizes and having some concerns about, looking at spaces and having 30 students in a classroom in the fall might not be feasible because the class is small and there's COVID restrictions currently of maintaining 3 feet of space. We don't know what the fall will look like, but we felt it was important to make sure that we could accommodate those COVID restrictions and make sure that it was a comfortable learning environment. And so that's where the FTE was added. And it was primarily, a majority of the classes were social studies classes. We did have an AP Spanish class as well as a health class as well. Anytime you pay for certified staff out of a grant, you also have to pay federal TRS, which is what that line item is. Dr. Skinkis touched on the school psychologist already and adding that for next year. The ALOP program is something new. That's Alternative Learning Opportunities Program, and we've been working with West 40 to have that program next year. They provide a student advocate to work with students that we identify. Typically, schools identify students, kind of as Mona was talking about earlier, for academic reasons, behavior reasons, attendance reasons, and really looking at students who are struggling across the board in all three areas. And so the building administration is working through what that will look like at RB. Currently, all of the other high schools in West 40 have this program, and it looks different in every high school because it's important to really tailor it to what we have here. But the student advocate will work with not only the student, but also the student's family to make sure that they're engaged and they're addressing the issues that are preventing them from being successful at RB. So we're really excited about that. Similarly, RAP services is something new for general education students. We currently do provide some RAP services for special education students, but RAP services, are really for students who have some challenges at home, and this person works with their family, sometimes, many times outside of school hours. They sometimes meet with the student during school hours, but it's really to provide families support in order to address the issues that are preventing the student from being successful here. So that's really looking at the family aspect and the home aspect of students who need some additional support. And then we have a placeholder for our remote learning option should we need to use West 40 and provide a remote learning option. Should that placeholder not be needed, we can either spread it out through some of these other items that are already here, or we can look to spend that money the following fiscal year and continue some of these items as well. And then lastly, the summer curriculum work. You had heard about the executive functioning work and the restorative practices that we plan on implementing next school year. We felt it was important to provide teachers an opportunity to come in over the summer and work with some of the experts already in the building to figure out how they're going to incorporate these practices into their classroom and have the support in planning with some of our experts during the summer, should they so choose. So we set some money aside for that through ESSER. We also have lots of other PD money through Title II and other opportunities as well. So this isn't the only opportunity. This is just the only opportunity out of ESSER 3 funds.
I think it's important to highlight, so some of the board members may be like, well, wait, this is the FTE, the 1.4 FTE is in addition to what we reported out in the fall, November projections and in the March staffing report. Again, these additional 1.4 FTE are for the 2021-22 school year. And then just to make sure that we provide accommodations to the social distancing requirements that we may be anticipating. And that's something we will look at then based on enrollment and our traditional staffing patterns for the 22-23 school year. But it's an additional resource to put in place for this year. But I do want to highlight, that was above and beyond our original staffing projections, and it may just be for a year. We have to wait and see how that all plays out. So if there's no other questions, I would just recommend that the board, review this.
It's a first read, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Any additional questions right now? Thank you. I think we went over this earlier this week, and it's complex, so I think we can look forward to the evolution of the budget over the coming months.
Yeah, it definitely takes a few times of looking at it at least for me, to all sink in.
Kristen, on page 5 of the budget, which is the summary tab, where you have the revenue in green and the expenditures in red, can we set that so it's color-coded? So obviously the brackets around it means it's a deficit, but maybe deficit also, not only brackets, but shows up in red?
Yes, I did
Instead of
that.
green, so it doesn't look like a circle.
Oh, and it's reverse on the okay.
So just a dressing up. That's
Just a
math is accurate.
Always.
Moving on to transfer of debt interest.
Again, this is a formality, but I'll allow Kristen to explain.
Yes, this is an annual request. The district transfers the interest earned in debt service fund to the educational fund. The board does have the discretion to pick the district fund, But the intention is that the district, the board picks the fund that is in the most need of the interest income. And typically that's the ed fund, because not only is it the most versatile fund, it's the most used fund. And so, I believe in my tenure here, we've always chosen to transfer it to the ed fund. The amount of interest earned this year on interest in investments was $32,306.28.
Are you asking for that to be approved tonight? Correct?
It can go either. If it's approved tonight, it helps the township treasurer have more time to
We
do
want to
the
make sure it's
journal
counted
adjustment.
before June 30th,
But
correct?
yes, so we have time.
I would say, though, it's probably better to approve tonight then, because they move at a different pace.
Yes, the township treasurer often moves a little slower, which is why it would be preferable to approve it tonight. It takes some following up to make sure it's actually transferred.
Any objections to moving forward with this tonight from anyone? No. Anyone?
This is routine, right? We do it every year.
Yep.
And you're the expert, and you're recommending that we put it to the ed fund.
Correct.
Would you be so
Okay.
kind as to read the motion?
Resolved that the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, hereby approves the transfer of interest earnings in the debt service fund to the education fund as presented in the May 25th, 2021 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gaska.
Any
Woo-hoo.
discussion?
You're for a
Any
second.
additional questions on that one?
So you can tell your dad
Ms.
now.
Ruska? Yes. Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Benhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gasko? Yes. Ms. Salas?
Yes. Next item is internal phone system.
Kristen, I'd like another item for the facilities.
So the current internal phone system, both the call controller and the voicemail system, will no longer be supported as of August 2021. In order to keep current on our software upgrades, the existing Mitel call controllers must be replaced. The current software levels are required in order to receive technical support both for the call controller and the voicemail system. A good way to think about this, because I think it's a little confusing at first, it's like we have an iPad 3 and it's no longer being supported and it's no longer being updated. And so, our physical iPad is okay, our physical phones are okay, but we need to update some of the things behind the scenes. So we've had the system in place for 12 years. When looking to replace these systems, it has to be compatible with our current phones. And so earlier in the year, some existing board members may remember we approved the use of a phone consultant to help us navigate some of these things. And so we did receive 3 proposals. And upon receiving these 3 quotes, the administration worked not only with the consultant, but with Telecom Innovations to ensure that all of our requirements would be met so that we can continue to use our existing phones. This company was also able to give us a phone masking option for staff to utilize for approximately $478.40. This was a request of some staff members so that they can use their personal cell phones, but it'll look like they're calling from the school, and then the parent will call back. And so it'll just be a great resource for the staff should they want to use it, especially for coaches, things of that nature. And it's by far much cheaper to go through our existing phone system than to try to get a third party to do that for us. Telecom Innovations Group is also the district's current vendor, and the administration has been very satisfied with the level of service provided. So we would recommend choosing the cheapest option of the Telecom Innovations Group. And this is a first read for the board. We do have time since we have until August before this is out of date.
What is the work that entail? Is it a quick turnaround in terms of, we're not going to
Installation?
go without phones?
Yes, no, we will schedule it likely for end of July or early August so that it's well in place before the actual deadline is up.
Maybe we can put it on a consent agenda.
I think that seems like a good idea.
Well, if the board
The
approves it on June 8th, which would be their second read, it should give you plenty of time.
Yes, yeah,
If you wanted to drop it in around the 4th of July, when a lot of people take their vacation, or mid-July.
Oh, well. Do we do an individual vote on the consent?
But
No, we
it
would-
does, if the
'Cause
board
this
wants
is
to
money.
shift it to a consent, they can in June.
But we can do money on a consent.
Yes,
We would
okay.
just, yeah.
So then we'll just do an individual
Yeah.
vote for the consent.
I mean, because we'll have the budget as a separate vote, certainly,
Right.
at the next meeting. That's a good point. Any other questions right now, or we can still ask them in the next week or two? For Dr. Smetana, the pool UV system?
So and Kristen's gonna go into a little more detail, but when the pool was installed in 2009, prior to my arrival, not only do we have a chlorine filtration system, but we also have a UV system. And so it's an extra set to help kill bacteria, fungus, those types of things. However, it's not very common to have, and a lot of our local high schools don't have a UV system, and it's similar to our roof unit. Some of the board members are familiar with that when we replaced our HVAC system. There's only a few people in this game. And so as you can see tonight, Kristen's going to talk about the bid that we got in regards to replacing our UV system.
Correct. So the pool UV system is important because it adds an extra layer of sanitation, but it also helps us allow us to keep the chlorine levels a little lower because we have this extra layer of sanitation. And so our pool is used all of the time. And so it's really important to have this. Otherwise, it just requires more work in managing the chlorine levels and raising them. And we've been doing that since this part hasn't been functioning since March. And the Facilities Council was made aware of it. But there are no parts available for our current model either. Joel, our former facilities manager, really tried to call around to pools that he knew had this existing part. The issue was when this was put in, we went through Siemens, and Siemens quickly got out of the pool business, and so that's kind of why there are no parts available. So we were trying to find a pool that had this but no longer was using it so that we could buy some of their parts off of them, and unfortunately that wasn't possible. And so this is quite a process. We had to go first to get a permit from IDPH, which we did secure earlier this month. And so upon receiving that, we went out to bid. We did receive one bid from AquaPure Enterprises. They do some work for our pool already. You can see the bid price of $45,334.59. We did anticipate only receiving one bid due to the highly specialized and licensed nature of this work, but also it's really important that this new UV system integrates with our existing chlorine controller, and so as a result, we had very limited options. So I would recommend awarding the bid to AquaPure Enterprises. I would like to ask the board to consider approving the bid tonight because in order to pull this project off, we have to close the pool for 2 weeks. The only time of year you can really close the pool for 2 weeks without disrupting anything is in the later part of the summer, before students come back in late July and August. And so AquaPure won't order the parts until they have secured the bid. And so if we wait till June, we run the risk of having to do this work next summer. So certainly I wrote the bid to give the board 2 options, or 2 reads, should the board want it, but I would ask the board to consider approving this bid tonight.
What was the lifespan of the previous system was 12 years?
Roughly.
And is
With
there
several
expected-
several repairs.
Okay. Is there an expected lifespan, or is there a warranty on this that?
There is. I don't recall what it is off the top of my head, but we've been working with AquaPure for a long time, so I feel confident in this company, continuing to be around and being able to service this part moving forward.
Just out of curiosity, how big is this piece of equipment?
Have you ever crawled down into the trenches of the pool?
I have not. By the manual that
drawings,
provided,
but-
that's about how big it looked, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that was to scale. So
I mean, yeah, I was going based on.
I believe there's
sheet
bulbs and
size,
stuff in there. I think it's big, like the size of a table. The table, 6 to 8 feet table.
Okay, because
Oh,
they
is it really?
submitted a drawing, but it's an installation, whatever, but there's only piping and whatever, so I'm just curious.
I'm not 100% sure.
I didn't know how big the piping
I've
was.
gone.
that was
I've
going
gone into
it.
the what we call the belly of the pool. It's underground, and so I've been down there. I have not been down there in the last year or two.
I can provide that answer for you, though, next week at our Facility Advisory Council. Burnham will be able to speak to that.
Maybe you can do a tour.
And we can go do a tour, Tom.
Yeah, you can see it.
No, I mean, it's a lot of money, and I'm for it. I think we should do it. It's just curiosity.
Any concerns about adopting this evening from anyone? I think Dr. Spatana makes a compelling case to move this forward.
Yeah, and Chris and I just want to say all these items that you have presented so far this evening, you know, I appreciate your due diligence of like, you and the facilities team right here in the building of like, can we use old parts? Can we call around? Can we, you know, like really trying to, you know, do the things that you can do without spending a ton of money first. So thank you very much for all of that, Joel, and sorry.
Burnham.
Yeah.
Berm, and
Yeah.
Berm, Joe left.
Thank you.
Berm.
Right, but I mean, it's been a process, including him as well, right? So, all right, I'll read this. Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby awards the bid for the pool UV system to Aquapure Enterprises, Inc. for $45,334.59 as presented in the May 25th, 2021 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Benhorst?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gieska?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Good thing we're approving all the spending now before we finalize that budget.
Get some of these things done this summer, which was kind of good too, right?
Yes.
I'm excited about this next item. Dr. Skinkis?
The IGA with District 96, so, you know, we have reached an agreement with District 96. We were able to finalize some things with our legal counsel. Luckily, both of us use Frantic. I shared it, they shared it with their Riverside Educational Council, which is their union, which is an IFT group. We've shared it with our IEA group and RBEA. And so the intent is to move forward with an IGA where we share a music teacher. And that music teacher will be an RB employee and then cover .3 at District 96. So the intention would be that we would use Mr. Loeb, who we reduced in force earlier in the year, to cover this position, so that would bring him up to a .8. And then hopefully through his work with District 96 and continued work with us, we can continue to grow our music staff. And like I said, there was one page on page 131 of 150. This was just a minor change that the RBEA legal counsel submitted, and so I implemented that page into the agreement that the board will take action on tonight, since the RBEA will be considered a primary union for this employee, and the superintendent from District 96 signed off on those changes, so those are included. But I am recommending approval on this so that we can work with Mr. Loeb and get him over to District 96 to get more involved in the programming there as well as here.
And this was approved by the 96 board already?
Correct. So I gave them the draft at the beginning of the week, and their board approved it on first read earlier in the week.
So any questions on this before we move the motion? I just think it's a innovative solution. I have to commend the prior board for working on this, and the administration and both unions and both school districts for coming together in a creative solution to the problem that was presented.
Yes, I have to echo that as well. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here, and we are able to get it done. We, right, collectively, but all those people get it done, and I think this is really good for kids, right? And the program, that he can grow the program from the bottom up, so.
Would you mind reading the motion?
Yes. Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois approves the intergovernmental agreement between District 208 and District 96 for a shared music teaching position, pending a final review by the superintendent and legal counsel as presented in the May 25th, 2021 board agenda packet.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Ruska.
Yeah, and then, yeah, another comment, for discussion there. This really speaks to what a unit district can bring you. It's a great move forward of sharing resources. We talked about different kinds of resources, like when we had the math curriculum from the feeder schools into the high school. Now to have this kind of model contract opens up a lot of new opportunities for us. So I think it's great work, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? I think we can move.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Van,
Yes.
excuse me. Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, on that one. The next IGA.
IGA with
Walk us through
West
this
40 is just a general IGA we approve annually. It provides us access to their services. It also approves the tuition rate should we use their services per student per day. We have used Safe Schools in the past. If we have an opportunity to avoid a student's expulsion, we've also used the High Needs Alternative Learning Program this year for a student. And so, again, it's an umbrella agreement each year that we approve so that we have access to the services provided.
There were some financial questions submitted. In fiscal year 19, the daily rate was $120 a day, and since then, fiscal year 20, it dropped to $115, and it stayed at 115 cents, which is also what see in the current IGA. And then in regards to the spend each year, in fiscal year 19, we spent $15,130. That was for 2 students, and they were both partial years. In fiscal year 20, we had 3 students there for partial years for a total of $25,530. It's a little misleading because some of that hit the next fiscal year. So in fiscal year 21, which is this year, we're currently at $31,510. We do have 1 student that has been there all year, and then we had some residual payments from the year before. In regards to what we anticipate spending for the 21-22 school year, I have in the budget $25,000, which is what we typically budget for in any given year in case we need to place a student at a safe school or high needs ALOP. In addition, I have the $75,000 that's currently in there for the ALOP program out of ESSER 3 that I had discussed earlier, and then an additional $50,000 for remote learning as well. So we'll monitor this line item and see if it needs to change, but that's what we currently have in there.
Thank you.
Read the motion.
Please.
This was a
Oh, this is the first read.
Yeah,
I'm
this was
sorry.
a first read. So I'm assuming we can wait till the next meeting.
This would be an
to approve
idea
it.
of one that could probably go on a consent.
Sure, again with the other one, yeah. Unless anyone has, and if you have questions.
We can always
get
pull it
them
off.
to- Yeah.
Yep.
To,
So Mary Ann will put this with the phone
Consent,
system on
yeah.
consent for June.
yeah.
And moving forward, matters for closed session.
You gotta read that.
Okay,
You gotta read
personnel.
all that.
Matters for closed session, personnel, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering
Hold on 1
appointment.
second. And I ask if there's any other visitor statements.
But yeah, these haven't heard it, so I was confused.
No, first you do your matters and then
You
you
read the
do.
matters for closed. Are there any visitor statements
Okay.
before we close the meeting?
Are there any other visitor statements? I'm looking around, I'm not seeing any.
Bob?
Now we're gonna,
No? Okay.
Discussion items, we have none.
yep, there were no prior discussion items, consideration of items for future meetings. Anyone? And we can move on to closed session.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
That was
Mr.
Mr.
Durkin.
Durkin.
Mr. Van Horst?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Nicholas?
Yes. And I'm going to ask, do I gavel at this point? Because I feel like I've gotten a lot of judgment on the gaveling. Okay.